Blue Beetle is the newest movie released into the DCEU. Oh wait, it's not. It's in James Gunn's DCU now, right? Wait, no, it's not. Blue Beetle is the first character in the DCU, but Superman Legacy is the first movie in the DCU? Okay, I don't know what that means specifically, but it probably won't matter. This is a movie set in a universe, and that's all we know. Anyway, Blue Beetle is an unsurprising mess of a movie that is filled with contradictory dialogue, emotionless acting, messy plots, and worst of all, unnecessary CGI, and vomit battles filling up the screen. The movie starts with an RGB gaming helicopter flying towards a secret base. We are introduced to Vanessa Cord, the main antagonist of the movie, along with her bodyguard named Carapax. I'm not laughing. You are. We see that there's a giant ball being drilled into to find something that makes me ask many questions about the continuity of the timeline, but I'll get to that later. The crew asks her if this might be a decoy, which is a strange question. She responds by saying that this is the real one, and she knows because she can feel it. Alright, so we know that this is an incredibly generic villain, and this movie has nothing new to offer in terms of antagonists. This is just going to be a plain old rich person with evil intentions to take over the world or something. Cool! When we get to the opening credits, we get some world building on the Scarab. We see various newspaper headlines about Ted Kord's disappearance, and then we get some visuals of the Beetle coming to Earth. And we actually see multiple Beetles flying throughout space, which begs the question, is this the same as the Green Lantern Corps? Each Beetle goes to an area of the galaxy to protect it, but then we see a Beetle fly through a planet and completely destroy it in the opening credits. So I don't know what to think of the Beetles. Are they the good guy or are they the bad guy? It's even described as a world-destroying weapon later in the movie, so I'm not quite sure what this is supposed to do. And then even later in the movie, the Beetle describes itself as a protector, so I don't know what to think of its motives. It's supposed to protect planets, but also destroy them. But the only positive thing I have to say right now is that the soundtrack is kind of cool. Then we cut to an airport and we see the family of Jaime talking about something that they are debating on telling Jaime. But then we see Jaime and they decide not to tell him at that moment. They go outside and we're introduced to George Lopez, who is a conspiracy theorist who says, "Watch out, Big Brother is listening." Okay, I wonder if George is going to become a likable character in this movie. Probably not. We see the family in a restaurant and Jaime's sister decides to tell him the secret. The family is losing the house because they can't keep up on payments. Jaime says that it's fine and that they'll just have to put in more work at the mechanic shop. But they lost that too because Dad lost it since he had a heart attack. Then Jamie asks why didn't they call him? He could have helped. And the dad just kind of says, "Don't worry, we'll get through this," without actually answering the question. And then the dad gives the waitress a 25% tip, which, okay, I thought 15% was generous. Anyway, the world building is kind of weird, and it gets even weirder. So Jaime and his sister are chilling on top of a roof, and they're talking about society and how they discriminate against Latinos. And it shows the city that is practically a cyberpunk city at this point. A bunch of RGB beams going up in the sky, holograms on buildings, pure white skyscrapers. It looks like a PC company vomited all over New York. Jaime is talking about becoming rich and the dream of providing for his family, and his sister is actively talking down his ambition because he's a Latino, okay? And I'm not saying you can't pull this type of scene off. We've seen it done before. The problem is we've just been told the societal pressures being put on this family and not actually being shown it. Take Arcane, for example, as it does the same scene very well. In the beginning of the show, we see Vi, Powder, and the gang robbing and running away from the rich, and then fighting off street goons trying to steal their loot. And then we see that that robbery has consequences for them and everyone else in the lower levels of the city. Vi is then given a stern talk to by Vander, telling them that messing with the rich never leads to anything good. Ending with Vander telling Vi how fighting your way out isn't always the best decision, especially when you are the leader.
Those kids look up to you.
Yeah, I know.
You know, but you don't know. When people look up to you, you don't get to be selfish. You
not-
say run, they run. You say swim, they dive in. You say light a fire, they show up with oil. But whatever happens, it's on you.
Why answer to them? These are our streets. Someone should remind them of that.
You're not hearing me. That path, this, it's not gonna solve your problems. It just makes more of them.
And when Vi and Powder are on that rooftop, and Vi says,
Milo's wrong, Powder. You're stronger than you think. And one day, this city's gonna respect us.
she's not just talking about Topside. She's talking about the entire city. and everyone in it, rich and poor. But in Blue Beetle, it's just kind of saying, I hate rich people. Then we cut to the next day, or a week later, I'm not actually sure, but Jaime and his sister have jobs at a rich house taking care of the place. Then we see a meeting with Vanessa Cord, and we are introduced to Jenny Cord, the love interest of the movie, and the character with the worst acting. She confronts Vanessa about the OMAC project being relaunched. OMAC is pretty much the same thing as the Scarab, but it's evil and red. Vanessa says that this is the legacy of Ted Cord and leaves the room. It was also at this moment that I saw that Carapax has CGI limbs. But why are they CGI? You can make robotic limbs in real life. Just give him a robotic looking sleeve and glove and have him wear that. RoboCop did it just fine. Even Iron Man had a real suit. Anyway, Jenny follows them, telling them to cancel the project. Then Vanessa responds by insulting her and saying, your dad abandoned this company and abandoned you. And there is just no emotion in Jenny's face. Her face is just no thoughts, head empty. And then Jaime comes in to be Jenny's white knight and says, leave her alone, and then they get fired. Good job. Then we cut outside of the house, and Jamie and his sister are outside waiting for an Uber to arrive. Jenny walks out, and Jaime goes to apologize to her. Jenny then apologizes for getting them fired, and then gives Jaime her phone number to get him a job at the Cord Company. That's crazy. Who in their right mind, especially a chairman of a company, give a random guy their phone number? That could get leaked easily if this random guy was looking for clout on the internet. Just saying. We then cut to possibly the best scene in the movie, and that is Jamie talking to his father about the current state of things. Jamie wished he could have helped his family during his father's heart attack, and wonders about his purpose in the universe. His father says sometimes it takes a while before we can know for certain. Jamie asks him what his purpose is. His father chuckles and says he's still figuring out himself. He says that all he knows right now is his purpose is to be there for his family. And I'm gonna be honest, I like this scene. It's not the best scene ever crafted in movie history or some breakthrough in storytelling, but it's a serviceable scene. We then cut to the next day, and Jaime is at Cord Tech getting ready for his interview, and the receptionist is incredibly racist, looking at him and saying, oh, delivery's down the hall. Yikes! Bro, how does she still have a job? Listen, I don't live in a big city, I live in a small town. I don't know if small towns are just better and not racist. I think she says something else that's incredibly derogatory, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. Anyway, we see Jenny is sneaking around, and she steals the Scarab from a research room and puts it in a burger box. She then attempts to leave, but the building is being locked down. Jaime sees her and asks her about the job opportunity, and then she just gives him the box. I can't stress this enough. Why do you trust this guy so much? He white knighted for you once, and now you're just like, all right, I can trust this guy with literally everything. He white knighted for you once, and now you're just like, yeah, I can trust this guy with a world-ending weapon. The Beetle is an incredibly important piece of weaponry, and you are just giving it to a random guy. What if he just hands it over to the bad guys, or even worse, dies in the process of protecting it? This man's blood is on your hands, Jenny. What a great character. Then we cut back to the family, and they are looking at the box, which begs the question, why did Jaime show his family this box in the first place? It's just a burger box. He could have just gone home, walked into his room, and then put it under his bed. And considering that this looks like a box belonging to a fast food restaurant, I assume that the family would assume nothing of it. Unless Jaime opened the door and said, dear family, this super rich person gave me this box and told me never to open it and not tell anyone. Which, in that case, what do you think they're gonna do, Jaime? You think they're gonna respect your word, Jaime? No. Anyway, the family opens it up, and his sister and George Lopez start playing hot potato with it. But when Jaime catches it, it immediately starts melding to him. Why didn't it meld to anyone else? Well, we don't know. There is a throwaway comment about how the Beetle chose Jaime, but we never get a reason why it chose Jaime. They could have just put in another throwaway line and just pulled a Thor and said, oh, he was worthy of the Beetle. But no, they didn't. They just said it chose him. So yeah, that's the only explanation we get. Anyway, we see the absolute horror of the Scarab burning his clothes and fusing itself to his body, and his family just doesn't do anything about it. It was kind of funny, I'm not gonna lie. We then see Jaime wearing the Blue Beetle suit in the dining room, and then he just flies out of the house into space. The suit is doing these system checks, which is why all of this is happening. During this system check, we see the Blue Beetle cut open a bus. Okay. So this thing was allegedly sent to Earth to protect the people living there. If so, why is it cutting transportation vehicles in half, filled with people? I don't care what the film says at this point. Someone died in that wreck, and you can cannot convince me otherwise. Jamie heads home and starts freaking out and goes to his room to put clothes on since his last outfit burnt off. And we hear something on the news about Bruce Wayne, which just reminds me how broken this universe is. And then we get a Superman reference, which then makes me think of the same thing even more. Anyway, Jaime realizes that Jenny might be in danger, so he goes off to the city to White Knight again. He sees her, tells her to get in the car, and she does. And then we see soldiers start shooting at them, which is crazy considering that Vanessa wants them alive. It's just mind-boggling to me. Also, this entire scene is probably about 7 seconds. We see Jamie pull up, Jenny gets in, they drive off while getting shot at. It's like at max 15 seconds. It's a crazy shot, but I know that they can't cut it because it's like very important. But also it makes me think that there was way more going on in that scene and they had to cut it due to length reasons. So yeah, it's just kind of funny. Anyway, after that 10-second scene finished, we cut back to the house and the family confronts her about giving this thing to Jaime and cursing the family. Then she says that she knows a place where it might know how to get the scarab off, which didn't answer their question, but okay. George Lopez, Jaime, and Jenny all start going to Cordtech. Once they're there, George Lopez starts jamming their signal with this machine that he's made, and he's able to jam the entirety of Cordtech's security cameras, which is mind-boggling. Just wow. I don't know how this guy doesn't have a job in IT or anything, but okay. Jaime and Jenny conveniently just walk through the front door, even though earlier Jenny said that it was highly secured, but apparently it's their lunch break or something. And then Jenny pulls out a paperclip, and of course, she knows how to pick locks. Because who can't? Honestly, if you can't pick locks, you're probably a loser. Anyway, she breaks open a case, and she gets a TED watch. I'm not laughing. Anyway, they then go back to the old Cord mansion and go to the Batcave. Oh wait, sorry, the Beetle cave, I guess. George Lopez then goes to this advanced computer built by Ted Kord and is just conveniently able to hack it for some reason, even though it's probably one of the most highly secured computers in the entirety of the world. But okay, apparently it's not. The only thing they do to like pad this is George Lopez says it'll take a while. Apparently, if you just give any hacker just enough time, they can hack into anything, okay? Anyway, Jenny and Jaime go up to her room and they start talking about her old house and how they had a happy family or something like that, I forgot. And then they go in for a kiss, and then it does the cliche kiss interrupt joke when George Lopez walks in the room that every romance narrative needs because it's funny. They then go down to the cave again, and George Lopez tells them that Jamie can't get the scarab off. This was a really good moment to have some character development dialogue. I wonder if the writers will take the opportunity to do so. No, they don't. They don't do that. Because writing's hard, guys. The main reason I say that is because George Lopez's character says something like, oh, now you're a superhero. What's wrong with that? And Jaime obviously doesn't want to be a superhero. He just wants to help his family. And he could have said something along the lines of, how does being a superhero help pay off my family's debt? That's a good question, Jaime. Why didn't you ask that? Jaime leaves and George Lopez says that he knows where he's going. At this point, I'm wondering if he's just walking home. But no, we just see him on the roof because he just loves roofs, apparently, because he's so quirky. They then talk and I can't tell you a single word they tell each other. The dialogue in this movie is incredibly forgettable. People just say things and things just happen because the plot demands it. Then Jenny comes up and says, can you hear that? To that I say, we can see it. The helicopter has RGBs on it. That is the opposite of stealth. We know who that is. It is obviously Jennifer, or Vanessa. I don't know why I keep saying Jennifer. Then Jaime assumes that they're going to his house, so he heads over there. Cut to the house, and they're getting absolutely invaded. The family gets dragged outside, and it looks like they're about to shoot him, which was just like such a tone shift here. But it's fine, because Blue Beetle shows up and saves the day. And during this, Blue Beetle says, no killing, while he's holding like a gun. And then his fist just turns into another gun-shaped weapon, and he says, now that's what I'm talking about, or that's more like it. And it's like, it still looks like a gun. Of course, it's not a gun when we see it. It just shoots like a sound pushback wave that like flips a bunch of action figures, or sorry, soldiers. But that could easily just be like a laser that takes out half the city. I don't know where Jaime thought that that was gonna be the pushback wave machine, but okay, Jamie. Anyway, everything's going good, but the father dies. And I'm gonna be honest, I was pretty bummed since he was the only relatively good character in the movie this far. And now he's dead. And it's because of Jenny, because Jenny gave Jaime the Beetle. What a great character. Oh, also Jaime gets stolen by Vanessa, so he's gonna get milked or something, I don't know. Then the family mourns the loss of their loved one. The grandma says that they need to save Jaime at all costs. Then Jenny shows up and says that she can help. Now this is another great moment where the writers can have some much needed character developing dialogue. This is a conversation that needs to be had. All the family knows is that Jenny gave Jaime a scarab that led to Vanessa hunting him down and led to the death of one of their loved ones. We could have gotten a conversation of Jenny and Jaime's sister talking and her learning to trust Jenny, and Jenny apologizing for what she did. But no, that doesn't happen. Nobody talks to each other. They just kind of shrug it off. And at this point in the movie, I just gave up. I did not write any notes at this point in the movie, and I don't remember anything that happened. I remember that the grandma had a giant machine gun. There was a giant beetle fart. I'm not kidding. A psychedelic dream sequence where Jamie sees his father, Vanessa being burned alive, and a guy being brutally murdered, having blood splatter on a glass window, and then Jamie just kind of says, "That's crazy," and then moves on. And yeah, that's about it. Jaime, aka Blue Beetle, is a pretty meh character. I can't really tell him what he is. He cares about his family and wants to support them, but he doesn't have any defining traits other than simping for Jenny. There's also this incredibly weird through line with him. It starts with him making sure that he doesn't kill people, even when they are invading his home and attempting to shoot his family. And I'm sorry, call me a terrible person, but if I have the Blue Beetle scarab suit that burns and fuses to my skin, and I see that people are invading my house and threatening my family, I'm sorry, all of you are dead. I'm brutally murdering all of you. Call me a bad guy, but I'm not gonna allow that, I'm sorry. But then also at the end of the movie, when they're breaking out of Vanessa's secret base, he just starts killing people, except for the main bad guy, Carapax, for some reason. I guess he realized that this guy was the only one that had any family and had a history of being tortured, but not any of the other soldiers. Those soldiers chose to be evil, definitely 100%. Jenny is possibly the worst character in the movie, and this is because everything going terribly wrong for Jaime and his family is her fault. So that's great. Also, the acting is not great either. Could have been better. It's Gal Gadot levels of bad. But I'm gonna say it again, I can't tell you any characteristic of this person. She sits like an alpha male in the beginning of the movie, but that's about it. Oh, also she conveniently just knows things about the scarab. She's just kind of the expository Mary Sue of the bunch. Just kind of knows things when it's convenient for them to know things. And also she can pick locks. That's convenient. Speaking of Mary Sue characters, George Lopez. George Lopez literally knows everything about technology, except he's still broke. He's able to make a frequency jammer that can jam every camera on Cord Tech campus and unlock doors. He's able to hack into an advanced computer owned by a super genius, and he's able to fly a Beetle plane without failure. So yeah, he can kind of just do anything in terms of tech. The family is just a character of itself. I can't tell you the difference between the mother and the grandmother. They just kind of just became the same person in my mind. The grandmother was fun, I guess. She had a big gun. The sister was the biggest waste of space in the movie. She had so many moments to do stuff, but she just didn't do what she needed to do. I'd say that she's the best acted character, but we don't really get to see much of her. Now, the father is probably the best character in the movie, I think. At least he's the only one with a scene that qualifies as serviceable. They also kill him off before the atrocity that is the third act, so that's a blessing. Overall, I think if I were to rate Blue Beetle, I think I'd give it a 4 out of 10, maybe 3. There's so much wrong with the movie. First off, the world building is abysmal. The city looks like a cyberpunk metropolis for some reason that's not really explained. I think we're supposed to assume that Cord Tech made this city so fancy, but it's not really honed in on. Another problem with the movie is the continuity of everything. The Beetle comes to Earth and Vanessa is looking for it, except Ted Kord exists and he's already used a Blue Beetle, so I don't know if it is the same one or it's a different one that left Earth, I guess. I'm not actually completely sure on that. This movie is honestly begging for a sequel to explain everything. And then on top of that, there were just some really weird color choices with Blue Beetle and his tech. Blue and purple just don't look good together, and it's very hard to make them look at least okay together. I think the poster is all right, but when we go to the Beetle cave, it's just this vomit of RGB blue and purple, like, everywhere. And it especially doesn't look good with the color grading in this movie. It's just, like, greasy. It feels like a Gamer Boy PC that hasn't been cleaned in months, and there's, like, a bunch of Cheeto dust in the fan and in the keyboard and on the monitor and just in everything. That's that's the vibe that this movie looks like. And the plot as a whole needs to be rewritten with more dialogue between characters. There's a lot of character moments that need to happen. For example, Jenny and Jaime's sister really need to have a conversation. I thought that there was a conversation that could have been really good at the end of the second act, but it just didn't happen. So yeah, Blue Beetle isn't that hot, but it does have some enjoyable action, some enjoyable jokes from George Lopez, and one good scene. So I'll give it a 4 out of 10. Would I recommend you see this? Probably not, but that's all from me. Thank you, and good night.